Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the good folks over at Folgers Coffee, who have been with us from day one. So thank you, Folgers. Also, big thank you to Dr. Snick, aka Justin Snicker, for his sponsorship of our intro and outro. He is an award-winning composer of Halloween horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found just about anywhere good music can be found. You will notice that tonight we are minus Amelia Pisano, aka Bubbles. Having internet issues seems to be an ongoing thing, but you will find her in chat on UFO Paranormal. So if you'd like to interact, get yourselves over there and interact with her. We will be posting her questions up from the chat room as they become available. We do have 8 different platforms here for the chat, which of course is UFO Paranormal Radio. Of course, we've got International Public Radio. We've got numerous Facebook, News on the Flip Side, UFO Paranormal, Outer Realm, of course, Canada's Most Haunted, Joe Montaldo, UFO Undercover, UFO Paranormal. I think I said that one already. Anyway, we see them all here in chat. So please just go ahead and light her up. We'll get to you for sure. Tonight, we have a really special woman coming on. I just love what she does. Her name is Elly Molina. She's going to be discussing how she teaches parents and children to harness their intuition. Basically develop the intuition, harness skills such as remote viewing and telepathy, which is kind of cool, telekinesis, all that fun stuff. It just sounds kind of cool, but you think to yourself, God, kids are kind of young to be doing it. But apparently she says no, and she's going to be talking about that with us, which sounds pretty exciting. So chat room is already lighting up. Yeah, Bubbles in the house. There she is. So we've got Janie. We've got, okay, Josh. Hi, Josh. Michelle Millen. So it's definitely starting. Wayne, hello, hello. So fantastic. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to read again her bio. So again, she is paving the way with research and background in education to teach children and their parents to trust their intuition and develop conscious awareness. She's creating cutting edge programs that can harness the skills like remote viewing, telepathy, telekinesis, things of that nature, and it can be applied to everyday life. I think we'll all learn a thing or two there. She is a former University Adjunct, I think I got that right, and highly recognized educator. Elly holds a master's degree in linguistics from NYU and has been educating for 4 decades. She's appeared on network TV discussing intuitive development in children. She is the founder of Psi-Kids, where children and adults learn to develop, trust, and utilize their psychic and intuitive abilities. While residing in Washington State, Elly co-founded a private school for children where children learn to use more of their minds in a very different manner. She is a creator of Mind Power Consulting and Psi-Kids. Elly teaches and guides you to work with your own powerful intuitive abilities while introducing you to mind power techniques. My God, this sounds like a mouthful, but I know, Amelia, I love Elly, right? Don't you wish we had somebody like Elly growing up? I mean, I was fortunate because, my mother was really good about things like that. If I say, hey, man, I have like an imaginary friend, she'd be the kind to take out photos and say, okay, do you recognize anybody in these pictures? Could be, deceased loved or a loved one, family member. But I was never told that it was silly, because that was just that'd be enough to deter children. And if you get into any trouble, they don't feel safe in coming to talk to you about it. So not really good. Zach Man. Hey, Zach. Excited for this guest. Can't wait to hear the info she'll share. Nor I, actually. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, Adriana. So hello, Tamara. There we go. Gang's all here filling in. There we go. All we need now is Mel. But we'll just wait for her to come on, bring her on, and figure out how she got started in all of this, which just, I'm sure, is a fascinating story because she's accredited like crazy. So I think, just check the email, make sure it went through, because that would be terrible. Oh, there she is.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I can't complain. I'm sitting here with you and all of our fine people just lining up in the chat room and
Oh,
um,
nice.
yeah, we've got 8 different platforms coming in, so there's going to be a lot of questions. My co-host Amelia has internet issues, so she'll be posting questions from chat. So every now and then I'll just pop them up. So you're going to still have the two of us at you. So
Oh, I love your background. Thanks for having me.
oh, thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure. Honestly, we've really been excited about it. As soon as I started just reading everything off, Amelia chimed in and goes, "I love Elly." So so there we go. There we go. So all right, I think I'm up to date with everyone. So this is a really unusual thing that you do. And I say that because working in the field of the paranormal per se, which is where I started and branched out into many things, parents seem to be the culprit when children are intuitive and they are seeing things and they're being told things like don't be silly, that's not real. Then sometimes, you get more malevolent things coming in or not so nice spirit, and they get in trouble. They don't feel safe enough to go and speak to their parents about it. So I'm really curious to find out. Everybody's chiming in saying, "Oh my God, yeah, we're waiting, just dying to hear what you have to say." What put you on the path to this specific field? Because it's just amazing.
I really do believe that most of the things the paths that we choose have to do with our personal experience, how we come into the world. And when I was very young, I had very strange experiences. I recall the first experience around 4 years old. I had I walked with a dead woman who at 6 and held her hand as we walked down the street, and I asked her, I said, "I thought you were dead." And she said, "Well, the dead walk." I mean, this was not the language a 6-year-old uses. Only
Right?
the language was, "The dead walk among us, only few can see." And so
Wow.
one thing led to another, and I told my parents, and my mom was cool with it. My father was, your imagination, your imagination.
Mine too. Yeah. Yeah.
But then by the time I was 12, my mother just handed me Linda Goodman's sun signs. And this is back in the day when we had to do astrology by hand. We would get an ephemeris and cast a chart. So by the time I was 12, I was really indoctrinated into the occult. And I
Mm,
mean, this is back in the day. And,
right.
and I did a lot. I have to tell you, in one hand, my parents were very encouraging because I did have a TV set when I was 10 in my room. And we're talking in the 60s, right? And I got to watch Alfred Hitchcock, One Step Beyond, The Twilight Zone, and that was my that was my nightly viewing.
I
So
love it. I love it. But that's pretty much what paved the way to where you are today.
it really was. And then things took a more conservative path. I mean, it wasn't cool to be psychic, and I was psychic, and I
Right.
was telepathic, and I did use all of these tools with my friends. Not all of them, just the ones that wanted to play with me, play telepathy. And
Right.
then by the time I went into a regular career, I chose something very normal, which was teaching, because I do love to teach. And it was in the classroom back in the 80s where I would see the kids were doing activities that were very telepathic. And so I had a lot of leeway back in the early days of teaching. And on Fridays, I would call it game day. So anything that we would do that had something to do with language arts, as long as it was a game, whether it was Scrabble or memory or anything at all that the kids, this is middle school. So we would play these games. And before long, I noticed, wow, these kids are like really telepathically connecting to each other. So then I started playing telepathic games.
Right.
And and that then it was always there. And then by 2000, and really by 2005, I think it was when The Secret came out. Now I was
Hmm.
teaching in New York City. And at that time, then I said, okay, if the secret is out, then I'm going to go do this in the classroom. And I
Right.
wasn't, it was still very conservative. It was affirmations, law of attraction, all of this. And I had a very open administrator, and the kids were scoring really high on the language arts. And these are interesting things because we did English language assessments, and our scores, my classes scores came in really high. So it was one of those stand and deliver moments where, what are you doing in the classroom, Molina, with these kids? And I said, well, affirmations, we're doing these affirmations, and the test scores were high. And so she said, okay, you know what, we're going to give you the opportunity to do an enrichment program called The Power to Create. This is New York City, middle school. So I created a program, The Power to Create, and I took it one step beyond, meaning, okay, not only are we doing affirmations, but we're going to do remote viewing. We're going to do telepathy. We're really going to start to use our mind in a very different manner. And
Wow.
Michelle, that's where it all started, really.
And how do the parents feel about that? Because I think my mom would have been cool with it because her side of the family is really intuitive. So was my father's. He just would never talk about it until I was much older. But was it well received? Because I mean, a lot of parents are just like, "Oh, that's not a thing." You're being silly to think that you're seeing things. You just didn't talk about things like that back then. It was
Right.
like
Well,
the family secret.
exactly, exactly. But by 2005, when I was doing it, the way that I was approaching remote viewing and telepathy, it was so scientific, basically. So
Right.
that it was, I always like to bring in the neuroscience as much as possible into this, so that
Right.
it's not in that space of like, oh, woo woo. I mean, we know that so much of this can be explained scientifically now. And
Right.
so that is where I went with it back there. And so
Hmm.
the parents were okay. They were fine. As long as their kids were producing and getting better grades in school, it was okay. It was an enrichment program. So
Hmm.
that's not, and the
Right.
people that come to me, Michelle, they are the people that, and it was an enrichment program. So they had to ask for parental, they had to ask, they had to
Right.
choose. So the people that come to me are really, they want the work. People who are not into this work, they're not going to
Hmm.
come. They're not even going to
Hmm.
look twice.
Right. Well, I would imagine that would be attributed to religious backgrounds, belief systems, that sort of thing. Did you run into any resistance with really hardcore, people with hardcore religious backgrounds?
No, no. The only place I've
Fantastic.
ever seen it, the
That's
only
why.
place, I know, seriously, the only place I've ever seen it are on YouTube comments. All right, where people will be commenting in, and I don't read the comments any longer after I saw that. But remember, I was doing a podcast and I was a guest, and the comments were that this is the work of the devil. And I don't even know if those were real comments or if those were just bots like trying to stir up trouble, because
Right.
in my personal life, I've never encountered anyone to say, well, that's the devil's work. And, that's not, those are
No.
not the people that I've ever attracted. So,
That's pretty hardcore stuff for sure. We have a question in chat. Here we go. I guess, yeah, I guess we should be explaining some of this for those who don't know. So what's telepathy or remote viewing? Maybe we can break down telepathy, remote viewing, and telekinesis,
okay.
and just to get everybody on board.
Right. So we have a common language. So
Yes.
we'll start with remote viewing.
Okay.
Remote viewing does not require any psychic skills or intuition other than training. So anybody and everybody can do remote viewing. And remote viewing is being able to see over distance, time, and space without our actual eyesight. So we can put blinders on, or we can put blindfolds on, and we're not even. And then we can look at a target, meaning a number is usually given in remote viewing. In the remote viewing community, the way that it works is that the viewer, the person who's going to look over time, distance, and space, is
Hmm.
given a target. And that's just in the training. I mean, in real life, somebody's going to say, hey, look for my lost cat. and I'm not going to have a target with a number, but then I'll go into I call it going into the zone. So I go into
Right.
the zone, and then I'll go into an alpha state, which is a reduced brainwave state. And then in that reduced brainwave state, I am able to see over time, distance, and space, and
Hmm.
see, I get impressions, and then I either draw them down, or I write it, or I record. And then okay, if it's a lost cat, when the cat gets found, then we get to have confirmation. But if it's an activity that I'm doing with the children, well, their confirmation is then when I do the target reveal, which is to show
Right.
them what the target was. Mhm.
Right.
And then
Okay.
telepathy is just the transference of thought over time, distance, and space. So, for example, I don't remember his name. Jose, was that?
Oh,
Or how do
Josh. Yeah, Josh.
you say
Oh
Josh?
no.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's
Um,
okay.
so when you are thinking about somebody and then they call you, or you're thinking about them and they call you like 25, 30 minutes later. So that was a
Right.
telepathic connection. And
Right.
most people are still going to the space of, oh, wow, that was so weird. Well, there's really nothing weird about it. That is how we are connecting with each other all the time.
Hmm.
So it's not weird. You could be thinking about somebody and then an email from them pops up at that exact moment in your inbox. So that is
Right.
telepathy. And
Right.
then telekinesis is being able to move objects without touching your hands over time, over space, just over distance. And
Right.
again, there are different forms of telekinesis. So, for example, spoon bending,
Hmm.
you have to touch, unless you're Uri Geller. I don't know anyone who does not touch the spoon. And I mean, I think
Right.
Uri touches the spoon and then it bends. But for the most part, what happens is we know that a spoon is very strong unless you picked up some really cheap spoon and you're cheating, and then that
Right.
doesn't count. But with a spoon that is really thick, then when we go into a deeper alpha state, the spoon will bend. And then once it becomes malleable, it doesn't undo. You cannot undo it. So
Right.
unless you force it. And so that would be telekinesis. There are other forms of telekinesis, like with the children that I worked with.
Hmm.
Only 3 of them were able to move dominoes. Okay. And they would, with the domino, it would just, it fell. It took time. It fell, a lot of practice. And then
Hmm.
there are other people who do telekinesis with spirals. They can make spirals move. That all counts too. Um,
Right.
mhm,
Right. Similar with some people will train maybe using a flame by putting
mhm.
it out. Same
Yeah.
idea. Josh says, "Is this real telekinesis?"
Real. Oh,
Yeah.
so this reminds me, one of the things that I was practicing, I forgot about this one already. When I practice, I was using an LED flashlight to turn on an LED flashlight with my mind.
Oh,
And
there we
so
go.
what we were doing, and I say we because it was a bunch of us, you take the LED flashlight and then you adjust it so that it is off, but not tight off, obviously. It's got to be a little loose, but not loose enough so that anything around you can shake it. But it's got to be
Right.
loose. And then you put the LED flashlight somewhere where you're not going to touch it. And then you focus on it.
Hmm.
And I did it before going to bed, and then it turned on in my face. And that's how I knew that it worked. Okay. This is
Right.
like,
Right.
all right. Everything else was dark, and I focused on the flashlight. And I've only done it twice. Uh,
Right.
and but then again, because sometimes, Michelle, I'll say to myself, well, why am I doing this? Okay. So why am I spending my energy and my time turning on the flashlight? Okay, you did it twice. Check. All right. Now
It's
maybe
done.
you're going to do something that will be manifesting something of more importance, maybe help to heal somebody. Because again, telekinesis is you can use that for remote healing. The same thing for remote
Mhm.
viewing. We can use that for healing. So I always look to use these techniques for something of a higher consciousness. So phenomena allows me and the children that I'm working with to realize how powerful we are. And it is a wonderful feeling to know how powerful you are. It's kind of like imagine walking across a bed of hot coals without
Oh,
burning your feet. And then
it's
if
like a
you,
superpower.
it is,
All
then
kinds, right?
it is. And when a person can bend a spoon or see over time, distance, and space and get the answer correct, something happens in our bodies. We get like a
Mhm.
real adrenaline hit. And that feeling provides real empowerment. And then, you look at certain things in life. You're afraid to look for a job. You're afraid to
Mhm.
speak up. Why? Why would you be afraid to do that when your mind is so powerful that you just did all of these wonderful things?
It's
So
true. Mm.
I use the phenomena to teach consciousness and to raise conscious awareness. So the
Mhm.
phenomena of spoon bending and psychic abilities, yes, we raise our consciousness, we empower, we get empowered, we feel really
Mm.
great. We realize how powerful we are, and then we get to use it for things that are more important in life.
Right. Right. I love it. The remote viewing we're very familiar with, so that's awesome. Would you say remote viewing is out of body? I'll read off the questions for those who are actually just listening tonight and who aren't on YouTube. So, is it like an out of body experience? I guess he's asking.
Yeah, it can be. Not necessarily, though. It
Mhm.
depends on the remote viewer. All right, it really can be. It can be an out of body experience where because there are remote viewers who have gone to the location out of body,
Mhm.
and so yes, it can be, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay, great. And can people levitate with them through your mind?
Well,
Some
here's the
people
thing,
do.
Joshua, here's the thing. I have never seen anyone levitate for real, but I
Mhm.
do remember many years ago when I started studying transcendental, and I'm dating myself, many, many, many years ago when I started studying transcendental meditation through the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, there were people who claimed and they had a film. That was before we had Photoshop. So there were films then that showed a group of people who had been doing transcendental meditation levitating. And like I
Right.
said, this is before Photoshop and the ability to manipulate all of the films like that. So I've never seen anyone levitate in my lifetime. Do I
Mhm.
believe it's possible? Yeah, I do. I think it just takes a lot of practice and really reaching a certain level of uh,
It
deep.
is I
Yeah.
think it's like, yeah, of consciousness zenning. I mean, you have, Tibetan monks who have been said to be able to do it, but you have to think about the type of, you know, work that they're doing. They're doing this every single day for hours a day to reach a
Mhm.
certain level of consciousness. I imagine, we are spiritual beings on having a human experience. So I imagine we really could take it to the next limit for sure. Co-host Amelia Pisano, what kind of effect does this work have on you physically? There we go. Good
Oh,
question,
oh
Bubbles.
my. It depends on what kind of work you're doing. So, for example, physically, when I'm doing a lot of remote viewing, um, I get tired. Yes. So, because I am in a different state, in a different zone,
Mm,
but at the same time, when the remote views are hits, I always feel very alive. So, and again, when we're doing the work, we do spend a lot of time in alpha and in deeper beta, deeper brainwave states. So it can also be very meditative. I mean, here's what I've heard. I've heard a lot of, and I don't know if this is true. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, psychics pick up all this energy. And so it affects the body, and you have to do this and you have to do that. And that may all be very, very true. So when I do the work, I always start with a prayer. Now again, this is different with the children when I'm working with the children because I'm not going to get involved with their particular religious beliefs, but we
mm,
do work with protecting ourselves and putting white light around us and working in white light.
mhm.
So in terms of how does that affect me physically, I don't know.
Right. I think you just get so conditioned to doing it, you just soldier through, I mean, for me, any work that I do energy-wise, I found I'm very dehydrated after, though.
Mhm.
Um, she also has another question. This one actually came first, but I'm trying to just keep it all in tune. So how do you deal with the naysayers? That's a good question.
Okay, thank you. So here's what happened over the years. I've been doing this for a long time. In the beginning, I would fire hose them, meaning, no, no, this is true. Let me convince you. This is the way that it is, and people can really do this. And now I don't say anything. It's like, okay, because it really comes down to if you don't believe it's possible, then it's not going to be possible because
Yeah,
it won't be there for you.
right.
So
Mindset.
yeah, I don't even deal with naysayers anymore. It's
I like it.
it's not for them. It's either for you or it's not for you. And if it's not for you, then that's okay. There are other things for you.
Move along. That's all I'll say. Go, move
Yeah,
along.
it's not for everybody, right? That's why we have so many
I do it.
different
Yeah,
things on the planet.
I do it nicely, but you know,
Right.
uh, Trish is one of the other hosts here on the network, and she has Peace of Mind Monday nights. I think this happens often in the paranormal investigations by the living by accident because so many are focusing on the light ball, etc. Yeah, I think again, mindset. Mind you, I think it's like psychokinesis, also projecting energy and doing like amazing things that way. People don't even realize they can do that. I always
Mm-hmm.
say it's easier for people to think there's something coming out of the woodwork at them than it is for them to actually believe that they're powerful enough to project their own energy and create all kinds of amazing things going on in their space. Um,
Can I tell
Josh,
us? Can I tell a
yes,
story about that really quickly?
yes, you
When
may.
when I was growing up, my best friend at that time was going through a with her family was going through a difficult time, and again we were in the realm. We were playing telepathy, if you want to call it, and we were doing all kinds of these. And when she would go into the kitchen, cupboards would open, and the refrigerator would open. Okay,
Of
but
all
the
things. Yeah.
the cupboards would open, and her parents got freaked out. And then they did some investigating. I don't know who they contacted. I really don't remember. But I do remember my friend saying to me, my parents think it's all of my excess energy, and that the energy in my body is creating all of this, and that this is what happens when kids go into these teen years. And
Right.
I said, okay, son, what do I know? As a kid, we were both kids. That sounds good to me, right? Oh, can you do that like at will?
Sounds great. Let's just do it. Yeah. Right. Throw
Show
caution
me.
to the wind. Yeah. No, why not? Why not? I think kids are daring. I think, they take more chances than we as adults take. That's for darn sure. Okay, Joshua has remote extraterrestrials. Are
Some
there
of them,
bases?
yeah, some of them have, yes. And again, there have been there's a lot, it depends on the remote viewing community. So the remote viewing community, and I'm going to assume, Michelle, that you probably had some real cool remote viewers on, at some, right?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so, yeah, okay,
One specifically. Yeah.
so depends on the community and who's doing what. So the answer is yes. Okay.
Right.
Um, I'm going to share something again, my own personal experience. I do psychic readings, and I don't know if that's part of my bio or not, but I do readings.
Excellent.
And there have been times where, I'll be doing a reading for someone and I'll see aliens. And then, I'll go in and I'll explain, this is what I'm seeing and this is the message that I'm getting. And now, this is always a question that I ask myself because I'm also very analytical. Be the person that I'm reading for, turns out then that they're into aliens, as
Right.
opposed. And so, is that why I'm seeing and connecting with aliens? Because of, I ask myself these questions. I just give
Sure.
the
You're
information to.
logical.
Right, I am
Yeah.
logical. I am, and I'm analytical. And then there are
Yes.
other clients that I work with who are who have deep belief in angels and
Yeah.
And then I see angels. So it's an interesting experience.
It is. And there's a huge belief that they're one and the same.
That's right. That's
You
right.
know, so it is really difficult to gauge. I really do think it goes with the belief of the individual. Amelia, how do you recharge?
I sleep.
Wine? Wine works well for me.
No, I either sleep, right, or I go out into nature. I go for walks. I have to go
Nature.
for a walk.
Grounding then, because
Yes, I've
you
got.
ground in nature, right?
Yeah.
Yes, fantastic. Question. When I remote view, I am always drawn to one person. Why am I always drawn to this one person?
I don't know, but I'm going to speculate. Perhaps you have a karmic connection from past lives or something.
Right?
And that's just, otherwise, we have all of these wonderful karmic connections and not so wonderful karmic connections. And so if somebody's constantly coming into your zone, there's got to be a connection that you two have from, or that you have with this particular person from either a past life or even maybe another dimension right now while we're still here, because there are parallel universes and dimensions going on.
Yes, yes, I agree 100% on that also. Amelia says, I break electronics. Yes, you do.
Oh,
Yes, you do. Okay, Dave's going to be that guy on the show tonight. Hi, Elly. Remote viewing. What's under the ice in Antarctica? Lost continent pyramids. Yes.
I don't do so. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm not that kind of remote viewer. I can tell you what I've read, okay, and what some of the other remote viewers have found and say. Ingo Swann, who's credited for being the father of remote viewing, he saw incredible things on the far side of the moon. And again, this is not where I put my energy into any of these. I would love to go do some remote viewing on Göbekli Tepe, is the
Yes.
archaeological place in Turkey. I
Yes.
just haven't sat down to do it, but that would be the only place that is really calling to me. Turkey calls to me psychically, and so that would be a place that I would consider remote viewing, and then even going to.
Could be past life too.
Could be.
Um, can you ask them to let Michelle sleep? The ETs. I just bellyache and I scare them off and they come back. I'm like, either just like, tell me what you want now, buzz off, let me fall asleep, then take me. I want to feel like I'm getting a good night's sleep. So, Josh, again, when we die, where does our spirit or soul go?
Josh, I don't know. I don't know.
The inquiring minds want to know. At least the chat room is responsive. So,
I have my own theories, right? That's about
yes.
all that I don't know. Haven't died and
Right.
come back yet. And so I'm just thinking we're energy. And so we just weren't either turned into another form of energy. I really don't have an answer, but I'm curious. And if anybody does, I want to know.
He says, at least you're honest. I love it. Exactly. It's a loaded question for sure. So let's get back then to working with children. Children tend to be natural psychics. You know, people
Mhm,
say animals and children are natural psychics, and then some children will lose it if it's not
mhm,
nurtured, and
mhm.
others will just excel.
Right,
Right.
right.
So how do you know which ones that I mean, I'm sure there are tests you can do, but is there something that you can see in a child right off the bat and know, ooh, here's a loaded one that we have to nurture, as opposed to some that just resist it, they may fear it, you have to pull it out of them.
Okay, so those are the children that I don't work with. All right.
Right.
So again, here's the thing. It's not that, it's just that the kids who come to me, they have to come at this point in the game, and even before I was teaching at a private school, they have to come because their parents want them to have it. So the parents have
Right.
some level of wanting it. Now, if the
Right.
child is resistant and they're only in the program and when I'm doing a program or I have my aunt, they're only in there because the parent wants it. This is not going to work. So
Right.
it's the parent wants it more because the parent wants it, and then they want their child to be psychic. Not that the kid is psychic, right? But then they want their child to have developed all of these psychic skills and et cetera,
Mhm.
et cetera. And it's wonderful, but the child has to be a willing participant. It's kind of like dragging your kid to piano lessons, and then
Play. Yeah. Right.
and then the kid won't
Yeah.
play or the kid won't practice. But the best results are always when the children are open and the
Mhm.
parents say, hey, we want to do this with our children. And I work together with parents and kids, and the
Right.
kids are open, and then the results are just phenomenal. And then
Mhm.
getting the phenomenal results encourage the children, right? It's like you do well, you get good results, you feel empowered, you feel confident, you want to do it again.
Right.
And so that's really how it works. And for those children who um, don't want to do it at all, well, there's just so much resistance that there's no point. And then with
Right.
the children who come in who want to do it, but then they're afraid that they can't do it, then obviously we have conversations about that. Like I said, a lot of the work that I do is raising consciousness, raising awareness,
Mhm.
even teaching children really early about what it looks like to create these stories that we tell ourselves of limiting beliefs. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
there's a lot of emotional intelligence that goes into working in this realm. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to, but that's my take on it. I
Mhm.
really work on developing emotional intelligence. I work on
Mhm.
developing conscious awareness, and then the phenomena itself, and then empowerment.
Do you find that it's difficult, like, it'd probably be harder to work with the parents because from the time of childhood, we're conditioned to believe certain things, maybe again, like religious standpoint, because it's drilled into you at a certain age. And it's a matter of trying to separate yourself from that core belief system of how you were raised or what you were, you know, again, religious background. Do you find sometimes that it's harder to work with a parent than with a child because of all that? The child's still brand new and
No,
willing.
so here's the thing, the people that come to me are
Right.
ready, and that it's a whole other crowd. If I were going to
Right.
go into the Catholic Church with all of the don't and anyone who's Catholic and listening to this, don't do not this is not no offense
That's
taken.
no, it's okay. They're used to it. I do it all the time.
But if I
So,
were going to go into let's say a
yeah.
highly religious institution,
Yes.
um, well, I don't know that I would even be talking about these things. All right. I'm not sure
Mm.
because I don't
Right.
go there. So, and I'm not sure that that would be my audience. So basically, the people,
Mm.
again, we're attracted to people who vibrate on our frequency, who have
Right.
interests that we have. So the people who find me are really open and they want this for themselves. They want this for their
Mhm.
kids. They want this. This is what they want.
Oh, I've met a lot of people who think they are more than ready. I deal with people every walks of life, pretty much 7 days a week. And as much as they want to do it and they'll work at it, sometimes it's just trying to pull away from the core belief that always plays in the back of the mind. As I know I've had to work with people and working with children,
Mhm.
trying to get them, to just don't make your child feel silly. They're really gifted, and sometimes they're so gifted that that little beacon in the darkness that attract a lot of things, and you have to
Mhm.
learn how to
Mhm.
work with them,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Instead of
Yeah.
instilling fear. So, let me see. All right, just try to get to this so I
Can I
don't fall behind.
can I
Oh,
just go to a little thing that you were saying? So you
yes.
work in the paranormal, and
Different fields, but yeah,
okay,
paranormal as well.
so then I'm gonna just assume, and doesn't mean don't make don't assume
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
because you know what that means, all right?
I do. I
However,
know the old saying.
the hell, right? So, what I'm thinking, here's what I'm thinking. If I'm a parent and I am very, very interested, super interested in the paranormal, then there's a high chance that my children may be seeing something because that is the conversation that's going on, that is our life, then I would be coming to someone like you.
Right.
People from the paranormal do not find me either. They don't find
Right.
me.
Right.
So that's the
Right.
and right. So it's again let's call it a clientele, a different group of people that find me.
Right. 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 Okay. Yes, Trish. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
What are you
yes,
talking?
I do. So right now I finally got this together. It is an online school and it is I don't even have the link in my head right now, but
No.
if a person goes to my email at ellymolina.com and then they log into the Psi-Kids section, then there's a link for the school and the program is called Make Magic Happen. And this is an online psychic development intuitive program for kids and their adults, or even just for adults also. And
Mhm.
then there's called the Midnight Portal, which is the community part to it, which is where I come in once a month and teach and ask questions and interact with the members in the online school.
Excellent. I put your website up on the group page too, so you guys can go to
Oh,
the Outer
okay.
Realm and find it. And I'm sure they could feel the way are in
Well,
there
just
as well.
yeah, in the side kid section, and then to go click to make magic happen. Oh, and then there's a 16-page free guide that I created for anybody who wants to start working with their children to develop their intuitive abilities, and that's called What If. It's a 6 ways to make magic, to tap into your child's inner magic, and that's on the side kid section on the website also.
Okay, that's fantastic. All right, just guys, find it on the Outer Realm. You know where to go. Um, so, what you say you teach them and you have lessons? Is that
Mhm.
something that you can share with us? So, obviously, you start from point A and you gradually hone in and harness those
Mhm,
skills.
mhm.
Where do you typically start?
Focus.
Recognizing abilities, or
No, just see, anybody can do this. We all can do this.
right,
However, we need to be trained. All right, we need
right?
to be trained. And so where I always start, I start with kids as young as 3 years old. And
Wow,
now they
that's
don't do, yeah, they have to progress, because if they don't, you have to have language to be able to describe what you're seeing. And
yes,
as
of
a
course.
3-year-old, you're not going to be able to pick up. Most 3-year-olds are not super artistic enough to be able to draw what they see. So, where I start with a 3-year-old is in focus and concentration. And again, this is where I have really cool activities in that 16-page free guide that are accessible, and you can start at age 3. So, the first thing that I always work with is focus and concentration, because we are not taught. I don't know about you, but most people have never been taught how to focus and how to concentrate and how to move your awareness intentionally from one thing to another. So
Mhm,
people are always saying, "Oh, I multitask, and I this and you can't. The brain doesn't multitask, and
mhm.
it's not focused, and the awareness is not there." And so teachers, I know, like we were all guilty of this at some point in our lives. We'll say, well, why don't you just concentrate on that or focus on that? But does anybody really teach you how to focus? Does anybody teach you how to concentrate? So that's where I
Right,
start. And the
right.
first exercise that I do with the children and the adults is called tucking away your body. So, what does that look like, to tuck away your body? I have them sit with, I call it crisscross applesauce for children,
Right.
and then put their fingers in what I call the zoot position. Those are the 3, because then, when I used to do
Mhm,
this in physical realm, we
mhm.
would take I would take my fingers and I would, like, kind of go like zoot, 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 because we were still allowed to touch people back then.
Right.
And so kids would love that. And we would call it, put your fingers in the zoot position. It made it happy. It made it relaxed. It was fun. Crisscross applesauce. And then we stare at an object. So if we had a fake candle and we're in a group over here, we start staring at a fake candle. And the idea is to start to sit quietly, tuck away your body for about, well, you try it for a minute to 2 minutes. Imagine a
Mm.
3-year-old. And then comes the conversation. Well, what did that feel like? We're not moving. We're not itching and scratching and fidgeting. We are absolutely sitting still. And the beauty is that, again, think about the Tibetan monks and all of the monks and the yogis. The
Mm.
longer that a human can sit still without moving their body, the experiences become transcendental. And so it's in this zone that I teach children how to tuck away their body to begin consciousness. And so then it becomes a transferable skill because now you can sit, you have control over your body. If you have control over your body, you have control over your emotions. And this begins the beginning of emotional intelligence. And
Mhm.
so the lessons start to build up on this.
Mhm.
And then we go from there, we start moving into seeing over time, distance, and space again with remote viewing. And it's all tied into meditating. Not, I wouldn't call it meditating. To sit for adults, it's meditation. All right. Because
Right.
we got to get into alpha through meditating. But for
Right.
children, it's actually just sitting still.
Right. Right. All righty. Trish, wow, thank you. My daughter would get in trouble in school from the time she was in kindergarten for moving things with her mind and such. Teachers would call me, hold conferences, that she was a disruption to class. I would imagine that
Mm,
that happens a lot, right? So that's again where you come in to help them focus all of that energy so they're not so, I guess how do you if they have to go to a regular school, do you
right.
work with yeah,
No, I didn't. I taught private school and I have my own programs, and no one's ever called me in to work with kids that were moving objects with their mind. I did work with autistic, and I will come circle around and ask this question. I think
yes.
it's not really
What
a
what
question.
yeah, yeah, she's
Well,
making a comment, yeah.
I will talk about that in a second. However, I was going into schools and, well, one particular school, and I worked with an integrated classroom where there were autistic and children with a attention deficit ADHD,
Mhm,
and we would do this work there, and the results were amazing. But no one's ever called me in to say, "Hey, Ellie, can you come in and work with these kids because they're moving objects with their minds and they can't control their abilities."
mhm.
um, I'd be curious, Trish, to learn what Trish was able to do in order to help her child.
Yeah, Trish, chime in. Yeah, it is difficult, because you have a private school, you're in a certain area, you have these kids who do have to exist in a regular curriculum, regular school, dealing with I hate to say regular people because we're all exceptional in
Mhm,
our own unique ways, but not everyone has an understanding of how to deal with children with these amazing abilities.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not even, and look, I don't want to trash education. However, it's not even, it's just so many educators are not even conscious of how to go about speaking appropriately to children, right? So, or
I agree with you.
so
I
there's
agree
a
with you.
lot of that, and I spend a lot of time working with kids with language and thought. That
Mhm,
again creates reality. The words that we speak matter, and so there's again that raising of consciousness, and so
mhm,
there are like in my book, for example, Children Who Know How to Know. And there's an entire chapter devoted to language and thought and words to use, words to lose, why
mhm,
language is important, why language creates our reality. And so I would teach this. This is part of what I teach the children also, even in the online program.
mhm,
And
mhm.
unfortunately, there's still a really large percentile of the population in Western culture that doesn't believe that our thoughts create our reality and that what comes out of our mouths matters. So,
Right. Yeah, it is really difficult. She says, unfortunately, it only caused her to have self-esteem issues, so she suppresses it more at school by default, I believe.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, Trish, that'd be interesting to have her really participate in a program where she can thrive, like really to use these abilities, to hone them so that she can use
Mhm.
them. They're fabulous.
I think that's just it. We only use and rely on our physical senses. We live in a
Mhm.
physical place, makes sense, but there's so many other abilities that naturally are there for us to use, and we're just taught to suppress them or ignore them.
Mhm.
Definitely suppress, but use them. So okay, a whole other conversation going on in there. So okay, so please continue. So you're working with these belief system. What is your hope, at the end of all this? You're teaching them to use their minds and these incredible
Mhm.
abilities in a world that's is just so difficult. Do you think that the world is evolving to the point where these really gifted children can exist comfortably and continue being functional?
So I have to laugh. My son said, I have three sons, and they're adults. And my oldest son said to me the other day, we were celebrating my grandson's third birthday, and it was his first birthday party ever because of COVID. So
Right.
we were at the birthday party, and I was doing my thing, and then my son said to me later on, he goes, "Ah, you live in utopia, where the
Oh,
things."
okay. Right.
And I said, I do. My world is very utopian, and my hope is that we begin culturally to really come to terms with learning how to deal with our human potentials, and that we have unlimited human potential. We are capable of incredible things, that when
Mhm.
we start to learn this at an early age and that we become confident and we can use this, we can circumvent a whole lot of problems. Do I think that this will happen during my lifetime? I'm just going to keep working at it, okay? And not that much has changed since I began this work, but yet a lot
Mhm.
has been changing lately. I'm going to say I started this work back in the 80s, and when I first started this work in the 80s, I mean, I was like from another planet. The only thing that I had going for me was Stranger in a Strange Land, and I believed that Robert Heinlein knew what he was talking about and that it wasn't science. And
Right.
that was my, it's like, okay, this is all real, and he's
Mhm.
hiding in a book, but all of this is real. And
Right.
we're going to be able to move objects and hold our breath, and we're going to be able to do all of these things, and we're going to be able to disappear in the fourth dimension. And I um, just really continued on with this belief all my life. And
Right.
so do I believe all these things and more are possible? Absolutely. And it's just a matter of us having conversations around it and learning how to do it and being open to learning how to do this.
Mhm. And what is the benefit, do you think, for children moving forward, in doing this?
Well, I think I'm
More
just going to,
functional adults in society?
absolutely.
Compassionate adults?
Oh, absolutely. But let's talk
Right.
about adults first for a moment, okay? Because
Oh,
that's where it
please.
starts. So,
Yes.
so
Yes.
one of the things when adults have these abilities, or like we're not adults develop these abilities, there
Yes.
comes an understanding that they can start to manipulate the energy field around them. So we no longer have to function in this third dimensionality. We can function through the quantum field. So I have clients, for example, who have had incredible results, jobs opening up that were almost impossible to get. I've had clients receiving green cards without ever going for an interview. Okay. Um, you know, I've had people erase debt. Okay, how, and some people come into large sums of money, and you could say, well, how did all this happen? I don't know how it happened. We just worked through the quantum field. We know how to do this. You can train yourself to work through the third dimension.
Mm-hmm.
So when we start to do this really young as kids, and we start to gain control over our emotions and what's possible, so you know what, getting really good grades is going to be easy. If you still want to go to college, going to the college of your choice will be great. You don't have money, there will be money for you. How? By using the power of your mind and using your abilities in the quantum field, that money will come. It's called manifestation. So,
Yes. That's what I
and
was waiting for.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm. And then
Is it?
we don't need to be working in 3D all the time. And those people who do, those people who choose to live in the third dimensional realm and plod through nine, and
Mm-hmm.
believe that this is the way it is, the hamster wheel, and we can never break out, and it's Groundhog Day every day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that will be up to them to continue that belief. However, I do know from personal experience and working in this realm for so many years, there's another way.
Right.
You know this too. Mhm.
Right. I do. I do. And I think that's where people struggle is the manifestation part. They just can't seem to get away from I just think it's just everyday life conditioning. You
Mhm.
know, you work, you work, you work, you work. You don't really you're not really allowed the time. They don't want you to think. They don't want you to think. They don't want you
Right.
to use these abilities, right? So,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean,
yes.
we can look at the entire look at schools as it's an institution. So
Yes.
that is what a school is, an institution, and it is geared to produce certain results. It's a political machine,
Yes.
and it that's how it runs.
Exceptional people and worker bees.
That's right.
Exceptional
Mhm.
people will get pushed one way, worker bees will get pushed another way, right?
Absolutely. Mhm.
For sure. Tamara, we don't use all of our brains. So the question is, what would be the results of using the full capacity of our brains?
I have no idea, but could you imagine? We probably wouldn't need our bodies.
No, it's true. Just evolve into probably we hit 6 or 70 at that point.
Well, and do you remember in I don't know if you've ever read Tamara, Masters of the Far East? It's a 6-volume book. It's about these masters in the Far East who just they leave their bodies. They have out of body experiences. They travel telepathically. They do teleportation, and supposedly the book is real. It's also not real, but people have said that these experiences in the book were based on true accounts. However, the
Mhm.
author had to hide this, so he created a fictional account. But if you ever read Masters of the Far East, some of these, this is what's possible if we start using more of our minds in a different way.
Mhm. There we go. Amelia, have you ever communicated with another remote viewer while at the same location?
Have I ever communicated with the
I'll leave it
remote?
up for you. There, if you can see it.
Well, I'm not quite sure I understand. Okay, so I just did a remote view. I'm part of an experimental group right now, and there are a few of us, and we're participating in remote views. And so the target did an outbounder experiment, which is where he went to a location at a certain time, a certain date, and we were then to remote view where he went,
Right.
and we had incredible accuracy and hits. So is that communicating with him? Yes and not really. Yes and no. I don't know. Since
It,
there's no time or space.
right. So
No,
maybe I want to elaborate on the question a little bit more. Do you need her to do that as
that might
opposed to?
help. Mhm.
Okay. Hold on. Oh, there's a whole bunch more there. Okay. Yeah, maybe
So
elaborate on that one just a little bit more, Amelia, if you don't mind.
otherwise, that would be
Um,
telepathic experience, Michelle. Like if we're having a telepathic experience, yeah,
right.
that's totally possible and happens all the time.
Right. Right. Oh, she goes, oh, there we go. Okay. Two remote viewers at the same location, not on purpose. So are you viewing to the same location? I guess, and you
What do you
show
mean,
up
like,
at the same place?
oh, you know what? I haven't had, see, look, I want to just get really clear on something. I do not spend not as much time remote viewing as remote viewers. Okay,
Right.
I work in a different field. I'm a consultant, and and a psychic, and I teach children and their parents
Right.
how to develop their abilities. Now, I have an entire community that I'm associated with that are remote viewers, and yes, they have seen each other at the same location, not on purpose, and
Right.
they've reported these experiences back. Yes,
Right.
it's
Okay.
very
Got that.
cool. Yeah.
Got that one. Okay. There's another Josh. I don't know if this will apply, but do you have a theory on shadow people since I still see them to this very day?
No, Luce, I
Oh,
see
sorry.
shadow
Oh,
people
hold
also.
on.
I do not know, but I don't know where they come from, but I do see shadow people. I have always seen shadow people.
Right.
And the only thing that I've noticed, Luce, this is my personal experience, is that when I'm more stressed, I see shadow people than when I'm not stressed.
Hmm.
I
That's
don't know.
interesting.
That's been my experience.
Right. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's a lot of theories with them. Extraterrestrials, sometimes some people believe they're
Mhm.
associated with men in black. Some people believe that they're demonic. Some people believe that they're time travelers. But that's an interesting observation that when you get stressed, you see them. So
Mhm.
that's interesting as to what would attract them. I definitely need to use my intuition to get more money to pay off my debts. What are some tips that Elly would recommend? Take her course.
Actually, Zach, what I would recommend that you do is go to my website and download the magic mantra and then follow that to a T, okay? Because then you will manifest money.
There you
Manifest money.
go.
And Zach, can I make a pitch on my podcast
Yes, of
on
course. Of
March
course.
20 on March 23rd? My guest is Mark Houghton, and Mark is a multiple lottery winner and game winner. So he lives now, he multiple lotteries. And so he does this through manifestation. So if you
There we
get on,
go.
yeah,
Go
there,
seek Elly out. They can, if they go to your website, they should be able to hook on to your podcast
yeah,
as well.
find the magic mantra. Yeah, the magic mantra is on my website, and then
Okay.
my podcast is not on. It's just Ask Elly
Oh,
Intuitive Insight.
okay.
But you could Google it and
Okay,
it'll
guys.
show you. Yeah.
There you have it. There you have it. Tamara says, I read a lot of Middle Eastern yogis and monks and their beliefs and training. So she's going to look up that information in the books that you made mention of.
Hmm.
There we go. There we go. So well, it sounds really interesting. The power of manifestation, multiple lottery winner. Most people would say, "Oh, you can't do that. That's not a thing." But clearly, it's a thing. So you're
Oh,
gonna,
it is a thing. It's
yeah,
absolutely a thing.
right,
And Mark has done it, and he's turned it into a business. He teaches it now how to do that. And my clients, the ones that I work with, have manifested incredible amounts of money through them just using the magic mantra. And it's a belief. It's a belief.
right, right. Um,
Zach,
okay,
when you
hold
want to
on.
work on your beliefs, okay?
That's what I always say. Mindset. Whatever. Put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it. It's kind of like the old thing that your parents used to tell you, say what you mean what you say, follow through, that sort of thing. Believe it. Yes, actually, I saw that. Ancient Aliens just had an episode on that topic of shadow people, is what he's talking about. They're also talking about the black color being from a cloaking technology and that their forms can come through completely in the visible light spectrum, so they appear as a shadow of their true forms. I don't know. Have you had any extraterrestrial experiences, Ellie?
No, just no, I haven't. Um,
Really? Do you know for
never,
sure?
no, I don't know for sure, but I've never consciously had um look, I'll tell you, the only time I've ever thought that I
You're in the hot seat,
here we go, yeah. The only time I ever thought that I had an experience with an ET was when I downloaded Dr. Stephen Greer, is that his name?
Right. Yes.
Right. And I
Dr.
did
Stephen Greer.
right, and I did the meditations. I was doing the meditations, and something happened, and I could have sworn I was visited. But was it my imagination? Was I in the dream state? I don't. Never happened again. I've
They
never seen an alien.
they say that if you put it out there, because they're telepathic beings,
Mhm.
and that they will definitely respond to that. Have you ever seen a UFO?
Um, I saw lights when I lived in Washington, yes. But now here's the thing: I lived right next to Fort Lewis, and
Right.
so
So
I
yes.
thought that I still think that it was alien spacecraft. Okay, my son told me that no, it's just a technology way advanced
Right.
before imagine.
Right.
I said, well, I don't know. We can look these up. These lights just went. They went from here, like straight across that, like just horizontal, gone like that
Right.
in seconds. And they came for a few days at 10 o'clock, same time in February for about 3 days, and then they disappeared and never saw them again.
See, the theory is that only abductees or contactees can actually see the spacecraft. That there are a lot of people who actually don't see them. There have been crafts that appeared over entire cities, and not everybody has seen them. But abductees or contactees apparently see them, which is why I'm asking. Just because a lot of experiencers or contactees will be able to remote view, have telekinesis, not psychokinesis, but telepathy. These are traits that are very strong in people who have extraterrestrial experiences. I'm just going to put that out
Mm.
there. Just,
Oh,
sharing the info.
I'm gonna have to have hypnosis, okay, and find out. All right. Because Michelle, if I've had experiences, I have really repressed them. Okay.
Yeah, I can hook you up with someone who does just that, actually. Um,
All right.
Amelia, Amelia says, is there a price to pay for all of this good luck?
I don't believe so, unless you believe so. If you believe that there's a price to pay, then
Right,
you'll pay a price. I believe that when we continue to do good, be good, and we're talking about doing things that are in integrity and alignment with our integrity and our
right,
personal values. We continue to do that, then we will continue to have good luck be bestowed upon us because we're vibrating in that frequency.
right, right. I agree with you on that also. Okay, where are we? Dave says they have to be within your frequency range to see them. Well, that's an interesting theory as well.
Mhm.
Maybe. Hard to say. There are people from all walks of life who are seeing things. This is why I don't look up at the sky. Heard too many horror stories from Joe. Joe is our producer, owner of the network, and he's also the owner of the largest abductee contactee site in the world of documented cases that have over 80,000 people.
Right.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, so
Mhm. Mhm.
he's got some stories to tell for sure. So, um, okay, so now we can get ourselves back on track. So, learning how, like, children learning to connect to one another with all of these abilities, do you find that it affects their ability to be connected, to make connections with other people? Like, let's say the parents just, I think it is learned. Do believe it can be learned by anybody, but I
Mhm.
believe children are naturals. And some of those children will they'll carry it through their lifetimes. I know natural remote viewers compared to remote viewers who have been taught to do it or tapped back in, is what I like to say.
Mhm.
Some people just never lose it at all. They just go, full throttle. Um, do you feel that they have a better ability to connect?
Oh, absolutely. If they choose to use it. So it's interesting that you ask because I presented at the International Remote Viewers Conference this last September,
Right.
and I spoke about following up with five of they're young adults now. They're in their 20s,
Mhm.
mid to late 20s, and they were kids when I was teaching them. They grew up with this
Mm.
belief.
Wow.
And they're in regular professions, okay? You know what I mean? Like they're not in extraordinary professions or anything. But one of the
Mhm.
things they do, they're very conscious. They're highly consciously aware.
Mhm.
So there's one of them's a chiropractor, another one
Wow.
is I mean,
Mm.
they're in typical fields, all right? It's not like, oh, you compare them to other kids. Yeah, some of them went to college, some didn't go to college, some have businesses, some don't. One's a trader, definitely uses his remote viewing and intuitive abilities to make trades, chose to do this full time. So it's interesting because either you're going to use it, you're going to lose it, but it's still there. It's still there.
Right.
And
Right.
so it's a way of life. Okay. So if you have, I like to look at it as trusting your manifestation abilities.
Right.
So that you really know, hey, you know what, I'm a powerful manifester. And I know that what I want, I can get. And I know that I can go for things. And some people don't even ever have to manifest to get
Mm.
these abilities. They're raised this way and they're really fabulous manifestors. Unfortunately for me, a lot of those people are still stuck in 3D, whereas these kids know that there's
Right.
something else to dimensionality. So
Mhm.
they are very consciously aware, whereas some manifestors are fabulous, but they're manifestors in 3D.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. Some people just being able to have the ability, you almost have to be careful what you're thinking,
Hmm.
because you can manifest some like pretty terrible things, especially if you're angry. Sometimes it's just with a thought.
Hmm.
I've been able to do things with a mere thought without even giving it a thought, without even thinking that I just actually manifested something. And
Hmm.
then you find out somewhere down the road, it's like, oh, there's something here, in this situation. I'm like, gosh, did I do that? You really don't think about it. That's the problem. You manifest without thought.
Right.
Whereas it sounds to me like you're teaching people how to manifest with a great deal of thought, but
Absolutely.
beyond just the physical brain,
Yeah. So it's
with
all about consciousness.
consciousness.
It's all about consciousness. It's about focused
Right.
awareness, being able to take your mind and to direct it to where you want to go. So you are controlling the monkey mind. You are controlling the chatter. I was having a
Right.
conversation with my son the other day, and he said, "Do you know that people don't know that there's inner chatter?" And
There's inner chatter, all right.
I said, "Yeah, but they're not aware of it. They don't know they're doing it. They don't
Mhm.
there are people who do not know that there is inner chatter going on or that they can control the inner chatter that's going on."
See,
It's
that's I'll
hard
I'll
for me
come.
hard for me to understand
Yeah.
that, but I know that it's true. Because I've
Yes.
worked with people who had that aha moment, like, "Oh my god, this is what it looks like to be conscious of myself speaking. These are my." And so it's really fascinating to me, especially after being in this, like I call it, the realm, doing this work for so
Mm.
many years, that people are not aware that they have monkey mind, inner
I
chatter, whatever you want to call it.
I completely I completely agree with that. I remember being on a case at one point, and somebody was recording, speaking with the client, and my daughter wasn't well. In my mind, I kept saying, "Oh, "We just got to get home to," I said my daughter's name, and when it was played back and reversed, you could hear my voice, which I never said out loud at any time, come up on the recorder.
Mhm, mhm. Oh,
And,
yeah.
and it's the only time it's ever happened to me. It's the only time I've ever heard of such a thing happening. I mean, personally, I'm sure they're out there, but for me, it was just like one of those aha moments. It was like, oh my gosh. Anyway, getting back, Amelia says, I appreciate you saying it's a way of life because for some, it's very difficult to turn off. Um, and natural remote viewers are often called daydreamers as children.
All kids daydream, so
Yeah.
the all children daydream, and we daydream too, except
Yes.
that then children are taught not to daydream any longer.
Isn't it sad? I think that's very sad.
Very sad.
Meditation cures the monkey mind.
It does.
I
Meditation,
agree.
right? Absolutely.
Um, and Amelia, white noise helps with inner chatter. I
Yeah.
believe so. Um, how about hearing things dimensionally? Because sometimes, you hear things. Like
hmm
for me, I could hear things, and I know I get this from a lot of people, where you're hearing conversations, you're hearing old music, you're
hmm
hearing things that
hmm
sound like radio broadcasting. Maybe you're picking up on airwaves, not necessarily within your space, but maybe in your space in a different
hmm
dimension.
hmm
What about
hmm
that?
I
Talking
don't.
about the
I don't
inner.
know. I don't
You
know. I
don't know?
mean,
Okay, fair
I
enough.
just
Fair
know
enough.
that I know that. No, I know that it exists. I mean, but
Yes.
I don't have an answer as to what it is. Look again. That gets back into my personal belief, which is
Right.
that there are way more things than you and I can see, and there is stuff happening between, and even in my own home right now, between
Right.
myself and the computer. There's a world
Right.
of possibility going on in there. So yeah, it's interesting because this morning I walked into my bedroom and I smelled my mother.
Oh,
And my mom's been she's deceased. She's passed on a few years ago. And it was like
right.
there's nothing in my room that
Mhm.
belongs to her. So
Right.
it's not like, oh, I got all her clothes hanging in my closet, and so I smell my mother. And it was like,
Right.
and I have said this to my son so many times. And then when my son came to visit me, he walked into the apartment and he walked into the kitchen and he said to me, "I smell grandma." And I said, I said, like, I'm not the only one.
Thank you.
"You smell grandma?" No. He
Nobody
said,
wants to be that guy, that everybody else telling this, or is it just me losing my mind?
but I
Oh
don't
my gosh.
I can't explain that, Michelle, but it's
Right.
it's not unusual that all of a sudden I know that other people have these experiences also that we can, hear or
Mhm.
smell and feel the presence of someone else. Yeah. Mhm.
Right, right. I have to do a very quick station ID and
Mhm.
sponsor ID. For those of
Mhm.
you just tuning in, you are listening to The Outer Realm, and our special guest tonight is Elly Molina, and she is talking about how she teaches parents and children basically to develop their intuition and hone in on abilities such as telepathy, remote viewing, telekinesis. Yes, there is such a thing. And maybe even manifesting a buck or two. Um, so we are broadcasting live on the International Public Radio, United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. Our big sponsor, Folgers Coffee. Thank you. Thank you. We love you as always. Been with us since day one, and we thank you for being a part of our journey. Also, Dr. Snick, aka Justin Snicker, an award-winning composer for our intro and our outro. So if you are just tuning in, please head on over to UFO Paranormal Radio YouTube, and don't just subscribe, become a member. Find out where all the good stuff is being hidden, and eventually everything will end up there. So in the meantime, welcome back. So here we go. Another question, Amelia. Is this coincidence? Do you believe in coincidence?
No, I don't believe in coincidence. I
Same.
think, yeah, I don't believe in it. It's all frequency, and we want to call it meant to be, but I don't believe there's any coincidence.
Yeah, I agree with that also. Frequency vibrations.
Mhm.
It's energy. We're all energy. Everything has a frequency and a vibration.
Mhm.
I completely agree, as does Tamara apparently. When you raise your vibration, it's like opening a new radio station and you'll hear things when the frequency is just right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
To the commenter above. I see. Yes, she's talking to Tamara. I guess there's a whole other friggin' show going on just in the chat room. So my gosh. Okay, so basically, let's continue on from there. You're working and you're molding these minds, and you're helping them to develop into fine young adults who are basically manifesting their dreams. And I guess
It's
you're working them into a 5-dimensional, 6-dimensional reality, or
learning how to work learning how to live in a third dimension and still
Oh, sorry.
manifesting whatever you want, so that you can live. uh, I don't really have words for these things, quite honestly. But I look at it like this. I like to think back in terms of 2008, just because that was such an important year. Um, in 2008, there were many people who unfortunately had a very, very difficult time. And then there were people who knew how to work this time by being in another, you want to call it another dimension? I call it another dimension. And then
Okay.
not only did really well, they thrived totally unaffected by any of what was happening. And that for me is being able to raise your consciousness so high that we are in another, this is where my son keeps telling me that I'm very into utopia or something, but
Right.
where I'm in a zone of consciousness, in a
Hmm.
frequency where, like, knock on wood, okay, I am unaffected by things that are going on around me.
Hmm.
And
Right.
I'm not the only one in this zone, because I got friends and I have clients. I have
We're all
friends.
zoning in the same place, right?
I've got friends, I got clients, I have people
Right.
that are in the
Right.
same zone with me. Yes. And then we
Right.
go step into third dimensionality, and
Hmm.
like, whoa. Hmm.
Right. Right. I have to give it a shot. Okay. What was another one I was looking at? Luke made a good point. All right. Here we go. Let's go back to Luke's comment. I manifest a thought about someone getting hurt because they hurt me. They didn't make it. Okay. And this is what Amelia was. I guess that was what we brought that up. That's what you were doing. Amelia, I'm lost. Sure. I'm still beaten up by that. Oh, I see. Oh, so you manifested ill intent and that person didn't make it. Okay. Okay. I get it. I get it. I'm just trying to catch up with the other show that's in the chat room. So, okay. Um, so where was I now? I'm just sitting here getting myself lost. Okay. There we go. You're welcome, Amelia. Um, Okay, so then the power of manifestation, obviously, you're never too old to be able to come in and take your courses.
Oh
You
God, no.
offer,
Yeah.
oh,
So the program is, it's an online course, and it's just
okay.
like it's done in your home by yourself at any, and you could be any. I have women my age who are doing this program, because I created it in such a way that it is so easy to understand, that it's
Hmm.
not complicated. It's for children if they want to do it. It's for the parents with the kids, and it's for us, because we want to do this also. We want to be able
Hmm.
to remote view. And it's such an easy, simple, non-threatening way to do it.
Hmm.
And it's self it's self-paced. So you go through the exercises on your own. It's audio, it's visual. And
Hmm.
then once a month I come in and I do a lesson with anybody who comes into the group. It's voluntary. It's
Right.
not school where you have to show up. But if you're interested in the topic, then you come in to the Midnight Portal and you participate. And there's a free membership, one month free membership for anybody who goes to my site and goes into the Midnight Portal. You have access for a month. You can join the call coming up on the 23rd, which is all going to be about the magic of manifestation. So anybody
Hmm.
looking for, oh, let me find out how to make some money to manifest, well, that's going to be happening. And so
Right.
then, I taught remote viewing. We did a remote viewing. I did a remote viewing class with a
Hmm.
remote viewer. So there's ongoing support in the portal for the students who come in to do the class, and the
Right.
parents and the children. Mhm.
Right. Right. So you can
Yeah.
come in with your child. This might be good for Trish to
Mhm.
try, maybe to come in with her daughter and to,
Right. Mhm.
like
Absolutely.
a parent and a child. So let's talk a little bit about alpha state. Children come in naturally in alpha state.
Mhm. Yeah. and it's a slower brainwave state, and we reach alpha by meditating. And children will stay in alpha up until puberty. And then when puberty starts to happen, that's when they go into beta,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're going to have to go and meditate also. So in order to get back into alpha. But one of the advantages is that when children are taught how to do this, again, think about it like in terms of um, NLP, neuro linguistic programming. So you need an anchor. So you could just
Mm-hmm.
have an anchor. And so it could be really quick where, I could say to a kid, okay, put your fingers together and drop into the zone. And
Mm-hmm.
then because of the programming, the brain, the way it all works, kid can do that and they can have access to that. But I want to tell a story that has,
Please.
okay.
Yeah.
So I was doing an online psychic development course for adults, and we were in the middle of doing a remote view. And so because it was online, I put up a picture, just a picture of a manila envelope. And the task was I had everybody drop into alpha through a meditation. We did a group meditation. Everybody was in alpha. And on the screen was an image of a manila envelope. And then it was time to come out of the alpha state and start to draw what the participants saw or imagined to be in the manila envelope. Okay, now it was an image. So, lady's drawing something, and her 5-year-old kid does a walk by, and he says to her, "What are you doing?" And she goes, "Oh, I'm looking in that envelope. I'm seeing what's in the envelope." And he sits down and he goes, "Oh, that's easy." And he takes a piece of paper and he starts to draw a figure. And then he said he couldn't write yet. He was 5 or something. He goes, "Write down power and dragons." Well, and she said, "Oh, do you want to see what my son did?" And he said, "Absolutely." Well, then I did the target reveal. And the target reveal was a picture of a figure, it was a toy of Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. The kid had drawn the black part of Jon Snow's head. He drew a sword. He drew the figure that looked like Jon Snow, and then power and dragon. Okay.
Right.
Power. Who knows the story of Jon Snow? No, I mean the
Yes.
kids didn't even know. All right. And
Yes.
everybody in the group, everybody on that class was blown away. And I was like, this is what happens when the kids they just know. They just
Right.
mhm.
Yeah, they
So
don't really have to work it. They're just natural, you know. So
mhm,
going into beta state, maybe for those who have no idea between alpha and beta, can
mhm,
you explain that? I
yeah.
guess in layman's term to make it easy for everyone else.
Well, alpha is when we're relaxed and meditating, or when we're
Right.
zoned out, when we're daydreaming. And that's
Right.
when we're in alpha and we're daydreaming. Let's say you're at your job, at your desk or something, and you just kind of space out. That's
Yes.
when you go into alpha and you get to hear things, you get to see things, you get to, you pick up on impressions. Somebody's name comes in and then they call you 5 minutes later. Okay.
Hmm.
And then when we're doing what we're doing right now, we're thinking, we're in our logic, we're communicating with each other. That is when we're at a faster brainwave state, which is the beta state.
The beta state.
Mm,
Okay. So when you talk about meditating, especially for children, young adults, should it be grounding first? Because meditation is sort of opening yourself up. Is there a concern when you're working with them that maybe something can come in and manipulate their thoughts or try to get into their subconscious? Or is that just more of an adult thing because we spend so much time in beta?
I don't know. We don't really, we don't go there. So
Right.
we go to, for example, if we're going to be doing, we go to tasks. If we go to, let's say we're working we're doing a project together. So we want to
Hmm.
remote you to heal. We want
Right.
to remote you to help. Sure, we say, I call it saying a prayer, putting yourself in white light, protecting yourself and grounding yourself. Yes, we do that. Um, and then again, now here's just my question, and I don't have an answer for this, but
Mhm.
if people have a very strong sense or belief in demons, again, what we focus on, we attract. So
Mhm.
if one has a very strong sense of demons and evil spirits, well, then there's a really high likelihood, in my opinion, that you're going to be pulling in from that realm. I do not
Right.
work in that realm, so I don't pull in from that realm.
Right.
And
I
I'm
love
not
that.
frightened by pulling in from that realm because they're not allowed into my realm.
Right. No, I love that. Again, it just comes down to mindset. You just set your boundaries. It's the way it is. You just
Mhm,
stick to it. So, how do you work with people who are, let's say, you're telepathic, you're hearing things?
mhm.
How do you differentiate what your mind's voice is as opposed to your
Oh,
elevated?
yeah. Okay, so this is again, do I have words for this? Not really, Michelle. But for
Okay.
example, I go into the dark. So I no longer, I used to read for people like one-on-one like this. I would look at a person and read and do that. And that was back in the day. I used to be a California psychic, and
Right.
we have pseudonyms when we worked for California psychics. And so when I worked for California Psychics, that was really where I'm going to call it, that was where the big training came, because those calls come in and we have nothing to go by other than the sound of a person's voice. If that's even an indication, which it is, you can, and you know a lot about a person just from the sound of their voice. But that was really, for me, that was on the ground training, about, because like I said, those calls would come in, there'd be like a moment to maybe clear myself quickly, wash my hands or something, and then have that next call come in. So it was during that time, during those years that I worked for California Psychics, that I realized I work better, I call it in the zone and in the dark, in the seeing. So what that looks like is when I'm doing a reading, I will not look at anybody. I go into the dark, and I'll, if somebody's here, I put my head down. I prefer not to have, like if I'm working with a client, I prefer not to have the computer screen on, and
Mhm.
to just go into the dark. I turn off the camera, and I will, we talk, we can record. I'll come back and look at you later. But while I'm going into the work, I go into the dark. And there is, uh, don't have words for this, because it is so clear that it is not me talking, because there are things that I say that I would never, ever even, like, I
Mhm.
wouldn't even think of this in a million years. Like, it wouldn't enter my
Right.
mind. I don't know the client. So why
Right.
would I be telling them about people that they know,
Mhm.
circumstances, using free? I don't have, I don't know this.
Mhm. But what about for that newbie who you're trying to teach? You've
Mhm.
become conditioned, so you have an understanding of which is which. What about for, this newbie coming on board, and they're not trusting what they're hearing because they don't know where it's coming from. They don't know, is this just my own thoughts? Is this really something else? Is like,
Right,
especially with telepathy, am I really communicating with someone else, or what am right?
right. I agree, and that's where you need a good mentor that to bounce it off of afterwards, to have that
Right.
conversation. So I worked with people who, I have trained a couple of people that later went on to work for California Psychics. And
Right.
again, the conversation is, how do I distinguish what I'm
Yes.
hearing and what's in my, and it's just training, and then it's training, it's confidence, it's getting that feedback. Yes, you are right. You were right the first time. Don't doubt yourself. This was right. So
Right.
it is practice. There's a lot of
Right.
practice. Mhm.
Excellent. Amelia, how do you keep children from not pulling in, and basically it's to that realm? So I guess we're talking about the lower realms, the dark realms. How do you keep children from not pulling that in when you're teaching them?
I don't know. It just never happened for me.
Right.
I have not had that experience out of all of these years. I have not had that experience.
Oh,
No.
fantastic. I love
Yeah.
it. Trish is back. As far as taking Elly's courses, I'm highly interested. My daughter works with me a lot with mediumship and intuitive art, but I'm still mom. So we need an outside coach to stay focused and prevent us from communicating telepathically in chaos. Then Elly will again at the end of the show tell us how to get to her. But if you go on the Outer Realm page, you'll find her website. That's a little cheat right there.
I love that they communicate telepathically, okay, and it doesn't have you can train yourself so that it's not in chaos, you know. I'm
Right.
actually, just FYI, I'm in the process of writing a book right now. It's a novel, and the mother and son are highly telepathic and communicate with one another. And yeah, it's fabulous when you can do it and you're both in consent with each other so that you're not stepping into somebody's thoughts that they don't want you to be in. But it's fabulous when you really get to that deep connection that you are telepathically,
Mm-hmm.
intentionally connecting. Trish, it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's difficult because there are people out there who like to view or tap in when they shouldn't. And
Fade, right?
yeah, yeah, well, human nature, I guess, too, right? So,
Mhm.
but I also think that a lot of people just need to work on confidence as well. I get asked a lot about these things, and it's like, it ain't quite my thing. So I know I do what I can do,
Mhm.
but it doesn't put me in a position to start teaching. I'm very, very, selective about my own field, but definitely not in a position to teach anywhere near anything on, remote viewing and such. And if I'm telepathic, I communicate with other things and I do get the phone calls and things like that. You think about somebody, but definitely not on the level where people think I am. So, no, not the one you want to communicate with about that. So, so basically, then, are you working on when people have done all your courses and I guess you'll get to that point where you're like, okay, you know what? There's not much more I can teach you with what I offer now, almost like going from grade school and then going into high school. So, what do you have for people who want to continue on, who just want to keep going the distance after you've pretty much taught them everything that you can teach them? Or somebody who's super gifted coming to you because they want a different perspective or to learn a different way?
Well, so that's a great question. So
Thank you.
again, I I'm not an institution. I'm just a me, right? So
Right.
nothing is institutionalized. Okay. There's the
Mhm.
online program, which is a great introduction. And I work with not everybody. I work with some teens, and the teens that I work with, we work together one-on-one with their parents in some cases. And it's a program and it's called Quantum Leaping. And the children that I work with they have strong desires to manifest something. Okay, they
Right.
know what they want. There's real clarity. And so they know exactly what they want. And so we work on using we work on learning how to part the seas. Okay, here's your staff, and you're going to
Mhm.
go out there and you are going to part the seas. You're going to make stuff happen. And so now this is not a program for everyone.
Mhm.
And it's not for people who are lost and don't know what they want, because it's not for me to tell anybody what it is that they want. But when kids come to me with their parents, again, this is parent, child, this is together, and they
Mhm.
know what they want. The kid has to know what they want,
Mhm.
not the parent wanting for the child. Does that make sense? Like, oh, I want my
Yes.
kid to get into this university over here.
No,
What do we do?
it
These are
has to be
kids
the person.
and these are kids, and I don't work with a lot. I've only worked with a few, and they've gotten amazing parts in Hollywood, and they're quite, but
Right.
they knew what they wanted
Right. So they have to have the focus and they have to basically,
and
again,
do
it
the
comes down to that say what you mean what you say, follow through.
Yeah, you have to do the work. And the work is all, again, here, the work
Mm,
is all in the mind and in the belief, but you have to do the work. And that is the same with any adult. Okay. If you want results, you have to do the work. It's like going to the gym. You want to have a really great, wonderful body. You want to look
mm,
like you're buff. You got to go to the gym. It's not going to happen by, you know,
right.
watching a TV commercial for, it's like,
Right. No, right. For sure. For sure.
abs, okay?
Um,
Yeah.
there we go. All information and links for Elly can be found on the Outer Realm Facebook page. Exactly. And Amelia is reiterating the program is called Quantum Leaping. So I guess this is just another step above, you know, regular manifestation.
Right. And the program for children and adults is Make Magic Happen. And that's with the Psi-Kids link.
Right. Which would be, they can get that on your website
Yes.
also.
Hmm.
Right. Okay. Okay, perfect. I'm just really I'm really pleased that you came on to the show because I don't think I've ever met anyone. I've been in my own field for close to 20 years and I meet people who are truly gifted individuals who everybody branches out into so many directions, teach so many amazing things. Every time we bring people on, we're always learning something, and that's what makes it that much fun because you're teaching us, you're teaching, you know, the listeners. When there's a lot of listeners, so it's not just what you see here. We have literally millions of listeners who tune into our live shows. So, is there anything you want everybody to know while here? This is the part where you just promote everything because
Okay.
you have a lot of people listening. So
All right. Well, I'm going to promote a couple of things then. Thank you for
please,
that opportunity.
you're very welcome.
First of all, if you really are a little frightened of getting your feet wet, but you are curious, definitely pick up my book, Children Who Know How to Know. It's available on Amazon. And it's an easy introductory book. It is for educators or parents or even anybody who wants to start to teach themselves and their children how to tap into these abilities. And it's a simple, simple book. That's number one. Number two, if you are interested, if anyone's interested in learning to do this work online in a very simple, self-paced, very gentle, loving way and has access to me, Make Magic Happen. It's, again, online program. It will never expire. And you do it self-paced, and I am there once a month. Tap in, you have access to me, and that is called Make Magic Happen, and that is
Mhm.
available on my website under the Psi-Kids link. Then I've got the Midnight Portal, which is an online community, and anybody can join the Midnight Portal. And
Yeah.
that's, yeah, Make Magic Happen.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
I'm just putting it up so the people who are viewing can actually
Right,
see it.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And
next
then I
we've got
offer, and then of course I offer readings and all of that is available. And quantum leaping, that's all available on my website. But for you, if you have any inkling and you want to start to develop your psychic abilities and you don't really know how because you're scared or you're frightened, come over to Make Magic Happen. Doesn't matter how old you are, because there's a child in each one. We are like those nesting dolls, those, and we are all ages inside of us. Sandra Cisneros, fabulous author, wrote a story called 11. And is it about a little girl who was 11 years old, and yet she went through all the emotions of being 3, 4, 5 on her 11th birthday. Fabulous
oh,
story.
oh,
And beautiful, beautifully written, fabulous story. And so the program, Make Magic Happen, brings the magic out for us, no matter how old we are chronologically, because we're
mhm.
still children inside. I heard something so beautiful today. Someone told me there was this woman that they know who is in an 80, actually, oh, it was my podcast guest. We were
Ah,
talking about we were talking about Helene Hadskill, who was known as the contest winner. She won every single contest that she ever entered. She was highly telepathic. She worked with Jose Silva from the
right.
Silva, okay? And Helene was an 84, she was a 25-year-old woman trapped in an 84-year-old body.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that was
Wow.
that was Helene's energy. And so,
Wow.
getting back, so circling back to make magic
Yeah.
happen, we can be any age chronologically and do this and make magic happen for ourselves and those around us.
Right. I love it. I love it. So, okay. Well, thank you. Whenever you get your next book out, I think I would love to have you come back on and talk
Oh,
about
Michelle,
that.
I can't wait to finish writing this book. It's in the works. And
It
can I
sounds
talk about,
exciting.
can I just share one thing? Do we still have
Of
time?
course, anything you want.
Oh,
Yeah, we've got time. Yeah.
so one of my main characters, I met a guy online who looks like my main character, and it just like freaked me out. And it was like, okay, this person is now going to be I'm not, it was just someone that I met randomly. Okay. But you know what? That was inspiration enough for me to like really get back into the book. Okay. And say, God, there are
That's
no
crazy.
coincidences, so how does,
Right.
when my friend said to me, how do you know he looks like your character? I said, I created my character. I know what he looks like. This guy looks like my character.
Yeah, I know what they're saying. I know what they're thinking. I know what they look like. I love it. I don't think
So
people
fun.
understand that about authors.
Mhm.
They already have it all worked out, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
mhm,
love it.
yeah.
But
The book.
thank you so
Yeah,
much
you're so
for
welcome.
joining us
Thank you.
tonight.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Mhm.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thank you. And I'll be in touch. I'm going to email you after the show and let you know what the numbers
All
were
right.
like. All right.
Okay. Awesome. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Wow, that
Bye.
was a lot of fun, guys. I just love her. She's just a breath of fresh air, and she's just what an amazing thing that she does for people. And aside from the whole manifestation thing, I'm sure there's a lot of thankful people out there, but just working with children that are often misunderstood, to me, I think is a gift in itself because you know, working with families who end up, again, on the flip side, in a bad situation, um, and even adults who end up in a bad situations because they're not meditating properly or they're not connecting properly. I think this is something that a lot of people can benefit from. But of course, we have come to the end of another fantastic segment on the show, and I'm really hoping you guys all enjoy this. I know I certainly did. It was nice to have Amelia manning the fort in the chat room. Big thank you to Elly Molina for tuning in. Huge thank you to Folgers Coffee, who sponsor us tonight and every night. Big thank you to Justin Snicker, aka Dr. Snick, for the intro and the outro. Please remember to stop by, subscribe, and get a membership. UFO Paranormal Radio on YouTube. Head over to the Outer Realm, show us some love, give us a like. Amelia really does a great job with the page. And if you'd like to contact us, only at the outer realm contact at gmail.com, the outer realm contact at gmail.com. We are booking well into the end of May, into June now. So there is a bit of a wait if you're looking to get on the show or you're trying to maybe request having someone come on the show. Tomorrow night brings another really amazing guest for the very first time, Dr. Mary Helen Hensley, who's going to be discussing her near-death experience after a car accident, along with reconnecting to her life's purpose and her journey to healing. This week has basically just been about really enlightening topics. So I'm really hoping that you guys will tune in for that. I know you guys are going to love it. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow night, hopefully.